Well, the weird 3 weeks is getting even weirder. Now, we've seen President Trump continue to feud with celebrities like Arnold Schwarzenegger. We've seen the bragging. We've seen the bluster, the braggadocio, the changing of positions seemingly on a dime. Basically, well, we've seen Trump be Trump. A Democratic congressman, though, now wants to help the new president deal with the stress of his new job. Ted Lieu of California reportedly plans, and I'm being serious right now, to file a bill that would require the White House to have an in-house psychiatrist. Lieu says, quote, "I'm looking at it from the perspective of if there are questions about the mental health of the President of the United States, what may be the best way to get the President treatment." And joining us now for more on all this is psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, who's kind enough to give us a few minutes. Doctor, thank you. Let me ask you, and I know it's hard to diagnose somebody certainly from a couple of hundred miles away, but when you look at our commander-in-chief and you see the tweets and you see obviously everything that's transpired in the last 3 weeks, when you hear words like narcissist, egomaniac, and more, do they apply here to the commander-in-chief from what you've seen?
Well, first off, I've never seen him in my office, but I think that now Donald Trump, since he's been on the national stage, the world stage, and within the context certainly of political psychology, we can look at his behavior. And now what I'm seeing are traits that are extremely narcissistic and egocentric, to the point of which he's actually, and this bothers me most, he's actually fabricating to help his own narcissism, making up stories about the media not reporting terrorist attacks and saying things that are really outlandish to bolster his own ego. And what I'm seeing here is a serious personality disorder on the national stage. I can't officially diagnose him as a narcissistic personality, but I truly believe that what we're seeing, he is a personality disorder of a very serious magnitude.
We all know people in different walks of life who need to be the center of attention, the loudest voice in the room. But for people who are concerned, obviously being the leader of the free world here and with nuclear launch codes, more importantly, what do you see? Is this born out of insecurity? Is this born out of the needing to be at the center of the attention? Why does he seemingly self-create controversies when they need not be? He almost steps on his own lead here a lot of times, albeit in 140 characters or less.
Right, because he's not just a narcissistic personality to some extent. He's a true narcissistic personality disorder, in my view, and that means that he wants to be the center of attention and be the biggest and the best and the most important. So the narcissism is at such a high magnitude here that everything revolves around him and what he thinks. Even if he thinks something may be wrong or completely offbeat, it's right in his mind, therefore it has to be right in the real world. And this is very troubling. I actually do not see him being capable at this juncture to really be the president of the United States.
You know, Doctor, one thing that always surprised me about him is at least the people, and we try and, put in our own experience or whatever, but if there's ever a guy like this, usually he tends to surround himself with as many people as possible because for the need here, for the attention and the adulation, whatever else. By every account, even his own, he has no real friends and he's as lonely a person as reportedly they describe. It doesn't seem to me in keeping with somebody who needs attention to be so distanced from so many people.
Well, he's the epitome of an authoritarian personality who's narcissistic. So the people who are now surrounding him, he can dominate. They're even going out there saying things that because the president believes it, it has to be true, when in fact it's not true. So this is a real problem in terms of how to run a country. You can run a business and have a narcissistic personality, and he could be somewhat successful. But when you're being challenged every day by either the media, by the Democrats, by independents, and even by Republicans now, a narcissist is going to have real problems. He's going to fight back. He's going to be problematic. He's going to be outraged all the time. He's going to be someone who's going to be extremely difficult to deal with. And how does this work going down a 4-year cycle here?
Well, one of the things in the congressman's bill, again, and again, I feel almost funny saying this because this will never go anywhere in Congress and won't even get a vote. But regardless, the California congressman said he wants an in-house psychiatrist because, among other things, he finds that the president is, in his words, divorced from reality, stifles any form of dissent. And he also talked about the worldview of President Trump and that he has a very dark and almost dystopian view of the world and how there's danger around every corner, violence in the streets. He seems to certainly take a view of the world here that we're right on the edge of, if not anarchy, some dystopia. So my point is, put that in keeping with people that you've either counseled or treated, people who are really worried about what's around the corner, coupled with the fact that they don't want to hear from anybody else, and if they have to make up their own reality, they will.
Well, in what you're saying, in the context of your question, it helps a narcissistic personality to have a dark view of the world because, again, he's going to make it work. He's going to make it great again. I mean, how does he make it great again if it's already pretty good or very good? So it helps him to have this dark side, and he's the narcissist who's going to fix everything. And I think that there are a lot of people who kind of liked his rhetoric, but they voted for him because he's a tough guy. They liked what he said, but they really didn't believe that he was going to do a wall and he was going to do all this stuff on immigration, and he would be so bizarre. But now we're taking a step into the twilight zone of democracy, in my opinion. How does someone run a democracy when they're bringing in fabrications almost every day? I mean, a democracy has to be based on the truth.
Well, to that point, Doctor, a lot of people say, well, you know what? There's one thing as a candidate, but then once, they said this during the primary process, well, he's just playing to the crowd in the primaries. Once he gets to the general, he'll move more to the middle or whatever else. Well, once he gets through this general election, you know, we'll go through the transition period, he'll tone down the rhetoric, and it'll be a lot different once he gets to Pennsylvania Avenue. He's now in the White House. It's only been 3 weeks, but the candidate seems to be the president in terms of temperament and personality, and he is 71. Do you think, by and large, psychologically, that who you are at 71 is kind of who you're going to be, period?
Yes, to answer your question, but with a narcissistic personality who's getting older and challenged more regularly, especially being president, he's going to be more narcissistic. So my point here is that he's probably going to become more extreme. As you notice, he's not just going conservative or reasonably conservative. He's going pretty far right. He wants to be the most dominant person. I think what we can expect is for him to be more self-centered, more narcissistic, and more problematic, and more into what he thinks it should be, and that's Trump world, not the United States.
Not exactly a very hopeful prognosis, but Dr. Rossi, I certainly appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Enjoyed it. Thanks.
All right, everybody, coming up next, Betsy DeVos's confirmation process was controversial, but not as controversial as her record when it comes to public education. Well, we spoke with the head of the United Federation of Teachers, and he is none too happy.